Good day, everyone. I'm Rudolf D'Souza. I am from India. I am the founder and CEO of Innovin Consulting. And I'm really happy to share with you how I have used the technique of gamification, how I've used play to unlock tacit knowledge. I hope through this entire process, you will be able to also learn the techniques which I have learned over the last 2 decades. What comes to mind when you see things like Pokemon Go, the Olympics, mission, or expedition? If you could type that in the chat, I'll be happy. Whatever comes to your mind when you look at these things. Do you remember Pokemon Go? It was a lovely game about augmented reality that was available on the phone. And it had some charming monsters like Squirtle, Charmander, and people used to pop up, go in the parks, and they used to go into various places, and they would try to capture these lovely, cute monsters. Okay, when you talk about the Olympic Games, it's going to happen in Paris from the 26th of July to the 11th of August. What comes to mind? The Olympic Games happens every 4 years, and no matter which part of the world you are, that is one thing that you cannot resist. People get very attracted to the Olympic Games. So I have put here a little bit on the Olympic Games. So what comes to mind when you think of the Olympic Games? What comes to mind when you think of mission? So the mission actually has caught people's imagination, especially the mission to the moon. It started with the Apollo missions to the moon in the late 60s. It still continues to this day. In fact, India has the moon mission called Chandrayaan. China also has the moon mission called Hao. This is the 5th mission that is there. So what comes to mind when you look at mission? What about expedition? Expedition, normally we think of climbing a mountain or going to the Antarctic, going to the South Pole. It's about physical endurance of people trying to reach something. So please type in the chat what you think about when you talk of Pokemon Go or the Olympics or mission or expedition. Did anyone type tacit knowledge? I wonder what has these terms got to do with tacit knowledge. But let's discover as we go forward. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how I came to become a KM professional and how I started using play or gamification. Okay. And one thing I know, we Asians, so what are the rules of gamification? We Asians, we love to have prescriptions, success formula, that if everything is step by step, and then I can execute it. So I think at the end, most of us Asians, we love to have rules. So am I going to give you rules? Let's go through the presentation and see what happens at the end. Will gamification or play work in every circumstance? That is a good question, and I will hope to answer it by the end of this presentation. Can anyone use these play or gamification methods? Yes, I do believe that everyone and anyone can use these methods, and therefore I am sharing a lot about it. And so therefore I'm going to give you a challenge at the end of it. Are you ready to be challenged? So these are my thoughts. So let me tell you how I became a KM professional. It was in the year 2023. Now it is 21 years back. Knowledge management was just an emerging field. And I had been in sales and business development. I joined this wonderful organization, which was Asia's largest direct sales company. I was to head one of the sales divisions. The company was 22 years old. And the person whom I was to replace, he did not leave the company. And so I had already joined. And then the MD asked me, the managing director said, can you look after this new subject that we are starting? It's called the new initiative we are starting called knowledge management. So I said, let me read about it and then take a call. And in those days, I went on the internet and I read all I could about knowledge management. The more I read about knowledge management, the less I liked it. because everything spoke that it's knowledge management is about technology. It's about the intranet. It's about portals that people will put their knowledge on the internet. Other people will download it, and world will be a happier place, happily, and people will live happily ever after. I didn't believe it worked that way. I believe knowledge management was a lot about people. So I went back to the managing director and I told him that, look, I don't like knowledge management the way it currently is. But if you give me a free hand, then I think I will take up the responsibility. Now, I think he didn't have much of an option, nor did I have much of an option. And so that's how I joined knowledge management field. Now, what happened after I joined, this was in 2003, wherever I traveled, and I had a team of 2 other people, wherever I traveled, people would mockingly tell me, oh, you are the knowledge guy. So why can't you solve my problem? Look, I have this problem. I have got this inventory lying here. It is not moving. I have got this outstandings. I am losing market share. My people are demotivated. I am not achieving sales targets. And people started throwing their problems to us. Heart of hearts, I knew that the solutions lay somewhere in the organization, but how do you get it out? And one day in 2004, I open the newspapers and I see the headlines, 100 days to the Olympic Games. In those days, the Athens Olympics was going to be held. That was in the month of July, August. And I started thinking about the Olympic Games. What is the Olympic Games? The Olympic Games is held every 4 years for 2 weeks. It is a festival of sports challenges. And it is only for champion qualifiers. The rewards are gold, silver, and bronze medals. And it creates a national spirit of patriotism. And it is played for the honor of the country and the glory of the sport. So when I was thinking about the Knowledge Olympics, I said, why can't we think of when I thought of the Olympic Games, I said, why can't we think of a Knowledge Olympics? And so this was a philosophy that we adopted for the Knowledge Olympics. Can we not create a festival of actual business challenges? Now, there are people all across the organization with challenges who have thrown it to us. I'm sure there would be other people who are champions at solving it out. So suppose we created a festival of actual business challenges and asked people to solve them. And we coincide this with the Olympic Games, so that during the Olympic Games, we run the Knowledge Olympics, and people will then think, okay, we are participating in the Olympic Games. And that's how we will engage all the employees. Okay, it would require the knowledge application. And it would bring out the spirit of competition. It would bring out the best in the people through the spirit of competition and team effort. So that was the philosophy with which we designed the entire Olympic Games. And I'm going to share with you the way in which every game was designed. The whole reason being is that this year you have the Paris Olympics. And this is an opportunity for you to run a Knowledge Olympics coinciding with the Paris Olympics. Now, at the end of the Knowledge Olympics, which we ran for 2 weeks, we saw so many benefits. So the employees got recognition, there was talent identification, they were given higher responsibilities, and the organization benefited because the organization climate changed. There were measurable results, business results on a host of operational issues, and the competence of people increased. Okay, so that is the power of the Knowledge Olympics. And how did we design it? We first designed it, like I mentioned, around actual business challenges. So there were things like receivables, so outstandings. People who had some areas of the company had declining market share, some products had declining market share. There was a lot of issues on customer support. How can we improve our customer support? There was employee morale was a problem in some places. And what about the productivity loss? We were not innovating sufficiently. So how could we grow? And there were issues of cash flow, working capital, etc. So we put all these into games. So I put one sample game out here. It is called weightlifting. So we called it weightlifting. At that time, the prices of fuel had increased. And so the expenses had increased. So we put up this challenge and saying that how can we redesign our entire logistics or our supply chain so that we can now transport more within the same cost, or can we reduce our costs? Can we optimize the entire way in which we do our supply chain and our logistics? Okay, and then we gave them some criteria as to what we look for in the entry. We also said you can form a multi-function team from anyone whom you know of. So, but we prefer, and we give points for forming the team if it was multifunction. Okay, so this is how we designed the entire game, and we gave them guidelines that in case you are to be considered for gold, silver, bronze, then these are the type of solutions that we want. So practical solutions, etc. So we give guidelines in that. So this is available on the slide also. And that's how we announce. So like this, we announced some 32 games. So this was in different areas, in marketing, in advertising, in market share, in sales, in receivables, in cash flows, etc. So we designed multiple games, and we call the names as close to the Olympic Games as we could. And what we did is that we divided the company into multiple countries so that in the Olympic Games, countries compete against each other. So we gave each area, we designated them as countries, we gave them the country flag, and we had done a lot of research and we checked out which companies. So since it was being held in Greece, so definitely we had the Greece flag. The top countries as far as performance is concerned is US, China, Russia, Germany, UK. And of course, we had India also out there. So like this, we divided the entire company into countries. We then also had the Olympic torch. So the day the Olympic Games started in Athens, we launched the Knowledge Olympics in our company with the torch. We had an oath-taking ceremony. So people would take an oath that they would play, do fair play, they would give the best of their knowledge, etc., and so on. We had a mascot. So all the elements that went into an Olympic Games, we put it into the Knowledge Olympics. So there was a lot of resonance that it created. And so the way in which tacit knowledge got created was in the problem statement itself. We didn't leave it to things like, okay, can you learn something on this? Can you do an e-learning course? No, that was not tacit knowledge. We asked people, we gave them a problem statement. Can you solve this problem? And we gave an output. What is the desired solution that we are looking for? We asked them to form teams. So then there was a people network element in which they were doing that. And we had an evaluation criteria. Most importantly, what we did, we had a marshal. In all the Olympic Games, you see, you have an Olympic marshal. So here also we had an Olympic marshal who was actually a subject matter expert. So this is how we designed the entire game around, and then we actually created a community. When the entries came in, later on around the Olympic marshal, we created a community. So the marshal was a subject matter expert, and all the participants, we then formed a community of practice for those particular different challenges. And over time, what we did is that we formed dream teams. So we had, based on this, we formed a dream teams with combined elements. So we had dream teams for innovation. We had a dream team for employee issues. We had a dream team for customer issues, for improving customer delight, employee delight. We had one in terms of solving out product-related issues. Okay, and one we had in terms of cash flows and basically improving the margins in the company. So what happened? There were 5,500 employees in the organization. And when we designed the Knowledge Olympics and presented it to the management asked us, what according to you is success? How many people do you think will participate? Heart of hearts, I thought that there'll be 1,000 people will participate out of 5,500 people. But I said 800 people will participate. And the management laughed. And they said that, no. If 200 people participate, we will count this as success. And in the end, what happened is that 2,800 people participated. So the amount of knowledge that we got was phenomenal. So what had actually happened through the Knowledge Olympics? So this really is, when we talk of gamification, this is play at work. What we did is that we tapped into the it was a stimulus, an external stimulus, Knowledge Olympics. So people got stimulated and said, okay, I'm participating for the glory of the discipline, okay, and for the benefit of my company or my country or my region. So we had tapped into that. It was a stimulus that we had actually tapped into. Also, we allowed them to form their own teams. So this was the informal network. Normally in organizations, there are a lot of informal networks with high trust. So through this, teams, we accidentally tapped into the informal network that existed within the organization. Later on, the informal organization, we made it into communities. So that's how we built up this. And we then ran dream teams over the next 2 years. So actually, when you look at the silos that exist in the organization, through multifunction teams, selecting your own people, we actually created pipes. So the silos now were actually now connected up. Silos are good actually in organizational design, but how do you tap into the silos so that cross-functional knowledge happens? So this is how we were able to use the Knowledge Olympics. And I hope that by sharing with you some of these elements, you have been able to get an understanding. And I'd like to know that whether you would like to run a Knowledge Olympics during the Paris Olympics, which is coming up. And so through this entire Knowledge Olympics, what happened? Hidden talent got thrown up. Now, why hidden talent? Normally, what happens is that you only know how much knowledge you know when you are supposed to use it. So by throwing up these challenges, suddenly people realize, oh, I know how to solve this problem. So we did not realize actually, normally in normal course of work, people work in their own silo. But when you throw this challenge, then they know that I can help to solve. So they would join a team and then they will help to solve. So we started identifying hidden talents across the organization. So you see how we used play in order to be able to discover talent, to create multiple solutions which could then work in different. So there were not just one solution, multiple solutions came up. People got recognized. Okay, so the outcome was actually, it was a whole employee engagement. 2,800 out of 5,500 employees is a phenomenal number. Importantly, we address the wicked problems openly in a fun way. Normally, organizations feel shy to say that, oh, we have this problem, we have this challenge of cash flows. So they don't want to talk too much about it. They don't want all the employees knowing. Will employees panic if they know it? But through this Knowledge Olympics, it was a public this thing. There were wicked problems that were thrown to everyone. And in a fun way, people started addressing it. We got richer solutions from multiple sources. Traditionally, you know what is there. Also, non-traditional solutions came up. So in one particular case where we realized that we had poor in distribution in across the country, there was one particular state was excellent in distribution. So they shared their model, how they had gone about it. So non-traditional, never expected that this is something that exists within the organization. As I mentioned about talent came thrown up, and we received long-term solutions through a short burst of activity. So I have shared in depth about a short burst campaign. What happens if you are looking at a long-term campaign? So my question to you is that, will these actually work in a long term? Now, when you are designing a tacit knowledge program using play, what is not seen? Actually, everything on the surface, it has worked very smoothly. But underneath the surface, a lot of hard work goes in when you're designing a tacit knowledge program using play. The knowledge managers have to have an excellent understanding of the organization characteristics, what is happening. They should know, they have to have a deep understanding of the organizational issues that are at play. What are the unarticulated organizational needs? That is important. So the knowledge management person actually acts when everything goes well, everyone sees the swans on top. They don't see the hard work that goes into it. So remember, every gamification program that deals with wicked problems, there is a lot of hard work that goes in by the knowledge management team before it has to succeed. And that is something that you need to learn. So how do you manage now with the Knowledge Olympics? Was a short burst activity. It was 2 weeks. So if you are to have something which is long term, can it work? Now, in challenges in designing a year-long program is that there are people have routine work commitments. So the attention that they require for it is, sort of reduced. How do you sustain motivation over a long time? If you have the Knowledge Olympics, 15 days and we are over with it. Okay, there's a lot of external stimulus, etc. It resonates with the organization. But if you have a long-term program, how do you do it? Okay, secondly, one cannot mandate participation. Oh, you have to participate in this. That is one thing that we need to realize. Like Dave Snowden says that knowledge cannot be conscripted. It can only be volunteered. You cannot order people share your knowledge. Okay, but it can be volunteered. So if you try to conscript and say people, you have to participate, it kills motivation of people. And of course, fatigue can set in. So therefore, then we have to shift the mindset of people, the mind frame of people. And so now I'm going to share with you Expedition Everest. The managing director of the company came to me and says, the Knowledge Olympics was very successful. Half the people participated, 50% of the employees participated. Can you design a program where I want every employee, the competence of every employee to be enhanced? Now, this required a lot of thinking. Okay, and then we thought of Expedition Everest. When you want to build competence over a long period, we looked at an expedition. The toughest challenge of humankind is either going to the Antarctic or going to Everest. Now, since Mount Everest is close to India and people know it, but the Antarctic is far away and not many people know it, we created Expedition Everest. What we did, we studied the organization, created into 5 different groups. One is the sales related, one is service related, one is support related, one is cash flow related, and one is strategy related. So we created 5 different streams. And we studied each and every one that, okay, if you are in a sales position, what are the basics that you need to know? If you're in service, what are the basics that you need to know? Then what are the experience that you need to get? What are the problems that keep occurring at this particular stage? And as you grow, so you grow from level 1 or level 0 to level 4 or level 5. So what is it? So it took us about a year to study the entire organization and all these different functions. We harnessed the people from the different functions and we created the entire Expedition Everest. And when we announced Expedition Everest, we actually studied how you do Mount Everest. So you have to be at a base camp. You have to acclimatize yourself. So we created a base camp where everyone had to study the basics. And only then you get off. The next part is when you go into the ice falls. Okay. So immediately after the base come the ice falls. So you study the base, you do the base camp. Then we went into the ice falls. So there was a challenge for people to do. Okay, that can you do so many sales or can you ensure that the customer satisfaction increases, etc. So individual challenges were given. Those who did not succeed went back to base camp and then they could catch up later. From there, we went to from the Khumbu Ice Falls, we went to the Valley of Death. Now, Valley of Death, there were very stringent challenges that people had to undertake. Okay, so they had to prove themselves in field that they have got solutions for different wicked problems that they had. They could work in groups, etc., and so on. And only those who qualified went on to the next, which was the zone of silence. Okay, so zone of silence, we gave them a lot of inputs, etc. We had external management trainees coming in, people, subject matter experts, etc. And we gave them final assault. So then that's how normally the Everest expedition goes. And at each stage, we gave them small little mementos. We gave them a little pickaxe, we gave them a backpack, we gave them a knapsack and so on. So the whole idea was that they kept going through the stages. In about a year's time, at the top, the champions emerged and they were taken around Mount Everest in a helicopter. Okay, so it cost the money, it cost the company money, but what happened is that the competence of everyone did improve. So when you create an expedition, people realize an expedition I have to prepare, and so it is for the long term. So that's how we created Expedition Everest. So that is a discrete program. Now I'm going to talk to you about something else. in one of the organizations where I consult, we wanted to implement knowledge processes. There were 14 knowledge processes. How do you implement knowledge processes in an organization? Now here, this company had 5,000 employees, okay, has 5,000 employees. And there are 14 and they work on projects. So they're a construction company and projects. Now, what we did is that we gamified the entire system. All the 14 activities had a point system. But that is not sufficient. For 2-3 years, we ran and we found that the points were not working. And then in the next year, we created the third year, we said mission 10,000. We calculated that if the projects did some of these 14 activities, but the key activities like capturing lessons learned, okay, in terms of innovation, in terms of having an activity-based classroom. So like this, the key activities, we then put higher points, but we said that you have to achieve 10,000 points and we created a mission. Now earlier, 5 or 6 projects would actually achieve maybe 3,000, 3,500 points, 4,000 points. When we announced mission 10,000, 93% of the projects achieved 10,000 points. From 0, they went to 10,000. And this continued. It's now in the 6th year. We keep tweaking the mission 10,000 based on what is the current situation, the current issues that the organization looks for. And our financial year starts in April and goes on till March. So we are right now to 6th year mission 10,000, and it is a great initiative. It succeeds. New employees join, new projects come up, all of them get into mission 10,000. And that's how we know knowledge processes are thriving within the organization. Okay, so now when you look back, I asked you, what has Olympic Games got to do? What is expedition? What is mission got to do? So that is how we have connected all these things into different gaming elements, which I have shared with you. So when you have to make a year-long campaign successful, some of the design factors that go into it, you have to make it inspirational. So that's why we created an expedition, or we created a mission. Then people will say that I belong to a mission. I have to complete this mission. I am part of this expedition. I'm going to achieve this. Also, you need to have multiple stages or activities. You cannot have a single activity. Okay. And there should be measurable measures of progress. People can see how they are progressing. Like in the Expedition Everest, they had to do base camp, then they had to do Khumbu Icefall, Valley of Death, Zone of Silence, Final Assault. In Mission 10,000, we have different stages where they look at, okay, I am right now at the base, then I am in the middle stage, now I have to get into Mission 10,000, and then we also have a league beyond 10,000. Okay, so this is how they measure their progress. And we ensure tangible benefits should accrue to the employees. So there should be a recognition for the employees. I will mention at the end, don't give monetary rewards, or don't give such high monetary reward that will kill intrinsic motivation. We normally talk about recognition to employees who have done an outstanding job. Okay, and you'll see tangible benefits accruing to the company in terms of its outcomes. Knowledge processes are implemented, competence of people are going up, etc. So this is really where we look at. When we talk of employee recognition, the rewards can be in a different form of a recognition, like they were taken around Mount Everest. It would not happen normally. We don't give them the money for it, but we give them an experience that they can talk about and share with others. So I'm going to challenge you. Can you look at something, a trend, a wave, and can you use it effectively? Right now, a big wave that is going on is generative AI, ChatGPT. So can you look at how do you tap into this? But create some wicked problems. Organizations having problems regarding these areas. Okay, it could be that they want to look at sustainability. Maybe they want to look at improving the entire supply chain, greening the supply chain. Maybe they want to look at new products. Maybe they want to transition to a green economy. These are wicked problems. So, or you need to improve on these things. So how can you use maybe ChatGPT or artificial intelligence? Okay, think about it. Also, the Paris Olympics is coming up. Would you like to run a campaign coinciding with the Paris Olympics based on the current organization challenges? That's why I dwelt so much on the Knowledge Olympics, because I can, the entire template I have shared with you. Now I'm going to give you one example of how, when Pokemon Go came out, we tapped into the entire wave of Pokemon Go. So everybody that time had their mobile cameras. They were running around looking for monsters. They were peering out here, catching it. So Pokemon Go, we created Ogmon, organization monsters. So like Pokemonsters, we had organization monsters. So what are these organization monsters? So like Pokemon monsters are very cute. So you got Squirtle, you got Charmander, etc. and all that. But organization monsters, these are things like margin suckers, margin cutters, EBITDA down. So they drag your company down in terms of the quality sucks. Aging inventory. You have fallen into a debt trap. So like this, we created 30 different monsters, organization monsters, and each had a different potency. So the difference between Pokemon and the organization monsters is that the Pokemon monsters, they'll pop up unexpectedly anywhere. But organization monsters are known and they exist in every organization, but we are not addressing them. In Pokemon Go, the objective is to capture the monster and overcome it. Here we are looking at the objective is to overcome the monster by weakening it. So there you strengthen the monster. Here we are weakening the monster by focusing on it. In Pokemon Go, the more in the involvement, the monster becomes stronger. In Ogmon, the more you get involved, the monster becomes weaker. And once the monster is weaker, so for example, it could be cash flows, etc., other monsters can be attacked. Importantly, in Ogmon, root cause has to be applied, other the monster becomes stronger and stronger. So you see how we applied this in an organization context, and we got some brilliant results. And then people started feeling, oh, I'm working on this monster, I'm working on that monster, and but there's a lot of, like I showed you the swan slide. You need to know the organization. Okay, what are the issues? What are the potency of that particular monster? Is it sucking your margins out? Is it creating a cash flow problem? That is very critical for you to understand. So when you create these play or gamification, lot of understanding of organizational issues has to go into that. Sounds cute, looks cute. When the results are presented, it's fantastic, but a lot of hard work goes into this. So I look forward to receiving from you, what challenge are you going to take up in the next 2 to 3 months, or maybe by the time August comes around, maybe you've run the Knowledge Olympics in your organization. So what have I learned over the last 20 years? Okay, what works for the employee works for the organization. So there is a big misnomer that it should fit with the organization climate. Organization climate is only a hype. There are multiple climates that exist within an overall organization climate. So you need to think. So when I was working with this construction company, everyone told me, you've come from a sales company where gamification works. In this organization, the culture will not allow you to work. But I have shown that it works, because employees is really what you need to look at. Homogeneous class of employees, what works for them. Here we have like young employees, 27 to 32-year-old is that is the median age. They are the ones who are technology savvy. They want to contribute to the organization. They want to be seen as contributing. Okay, so therefore, can you tap into the employees? What do the employees do? Don't look at the organization, say organization culture does not allow gamification. Look at the employees and see what will work. Recognition is a more powerful motivator than monetary rewards. All too often we say, oh, we'll give $1 million for a new idea. Okay, and we will then create. But honestly, in India, we've got a goddess of wealth called Lakshmi, and we've got a goddess of knowledge called Saraswati. We never mix Lakshmi and Saraswati. You'll never find a coin with Lakshmi and Saraswati on both sides, on either side. They'll be side by side, but When it comes to Saraswati, we don't mix Lakshmi. Okay, so keep that in mind. That I took a lot of inspiration from the way the quality awards, Malcolm Baldrige awards are designed. You don't compete with others. You compete within the organization to improve the organization climate. You could be a green belt, you could be a black belt, brown belt, etc. So you are actually helping to improve. So what happens is that design your play in such a way that people don't compete for the sake of competing with others. They're competing for the organization. Only use gamification for wicked challenges. Today, there is a practice that everything should be gamified. From the time a employee enters the organization, he should do his induction program. The employee, when he joins an organization, is already motivated. Why are you creating a gamification program? He will happily do his induction program. So don't do gamification for everything. People are even giving them points for filling in their reports. That is expected of you. Look only at the wicked challenges. So look at what are the organization challenges. So then automatically, when you have to evaluate your gamification program, you're doing it on parameters that affect the business parameters. So it's important to business, your productivity, your engagement score for customer, for employees, or your margins. Okay. Don't use gamification for anything and everything. Okay. That creates a tiredness. Effectiveness of gamification reduces. And I was asked this question once, is it an art or a science? Always we want something that works. It's a formula. Everyone wants formula, especially we Asians. If I do this, these are the results. I feel gamification is more of an art. We use some of the cognitive sciences, what they call, but it is not a science. Okay. And importantly, an organization is a complex adaptive system. So can you look at some of the principles? So can you check what are the emergent properties that are happening? Okay, so can I then scale up? Can I dampen? So actually, if you see, gamification is a leverage point. It is a very powerful lever used in one area that can actually amplify the benefits across the organization. So I look upon gamification as one element or a leverage point that you can use, but use it rightly. Don't use it for any and everything. Importantly, people ask, oh, should we have a brilliant user interface? No, I'm saying look at the immersion that matters. Can people feel it that, oh, I am participating in something that is important? Not that, okay, oh, I've got a brilliant interface, so you can log in, you can do this, it's all intuitive, etc. Can you make people feel that they are contributing something important? Then it doesn't matter what interface you're using. I'm a very low-tech guy. I use posters, I use media, etc. and so on, but I get people to feel it. Leverage what the external atmosphere, the Olympic Games are coming up. So people should feel that I am participating in the Olympic Games. It's a resonance that takes place from the external atmosphere, especially for short-term campaigns. So can you use what is happening externally to bring in the element internally? And I'm asked, is there any theoretical framework? Yeah, there are a lot of theoretical frameworks. I started my gamification 10 years before the first course in gamification appeared. I believe that we must always root our implementation of practical based on theory. So strong theory is always good. So I do recommend that you should go do some course in gamification, learn the theory. So I have done course in gamification and I use it more as a scaffold. So basically, when you're constructing something, you use a guides, and then later on you dismantle the scaffold and you keep building on it. So I use the frameworks basically as a scaffold, and I check that, okay, but being an art form, there are no rules as such that can work. You will actually get to feel it in your bones that, okay, this is going to succeed or this is not going to succeed. So with that, thank you very much. And I really hope that you have learned something from this short interaction that I've had. You are feel free to reach out to me, and I'll be happy to know if you have been able to do a good gamification program to elicit tacit knowledge. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Rudolf. Thank you for your wonderful sharing about harnessing play to unlock tacit knowledge. That's very helpful and practical. And we have hundreds of thousands of people watching online, and we got very positive feedback from the audience. And now we come to the Q&A. And first, we may answer the question from Michelle in the chat.
Yes, I can. So
Yes.
Michelle has asked the question, for a long-term program, what metrics do you normally set up to monitor the effectiveness? Michelle, like I mentioned in the presentation, when we do a gamification, we are looking basically at wicked problems of the organization. So we set it up in terms of business issues that we are looking at. Okay, it is not a motivation program. So therefore, we will look at, okay, can we increase our customer satisfaction? Can we improve people productivity? So these are the design on which we base it on. So therefore, it is the effectiveness is measured. One, like Mission 10,000 mentioned, was about implementation of knowledge processes in the organization. How well is it entrenched? Okay, so this is really the parameters with which we do. When we did Expedition Everest, it was improving the competence of everyone. Okay, and so there were tests at every stage. So at competence, and then we also got business results in terms of sales, customer satisfaction, etc. So everything we could measure and we could share it out. Similarly, in the Knowledge Olympics, when you do something, you can get a feeling of how you have tackled the issues. Pokemon Go or the Ogmon Go, you are actually looking at so many monsters in the organization, so you can measure how I have effectively tackled these monsters. Okay, so I hope I've been able to answer your question, Michelle.
好的，这个问题呢是说问，对一个如果在公司是一个比较长期的这样一个知识管理项目，那可以用什么样的指标来衡量这个项目的有效性？那我们在说做这些项目之前呢，它主要的一个目的是为了解决我们组织内部的各种问题，可能是各种业务问题，可能是财务的、销售的、营销的各个方面的问题。那我们衡量的时候呢，我们可以看这个项目它是否有提高，比如说我们客户的满意度、员工的工作效率，然后员工的工作能力，然后这个业务的实际问题有没有得到解决。那么其实除了可以设定这样的一系列的一个指标，我们可以来衡量。同时呢，我们最后也说这个知识管理它这个游戏化的一个过程呢，也是我们可以切身能够感受到的一个你是否有它的一个有效性。那具体的话，我们可以根据组织的具体情况来进行调整。
Ritu here.
Hey, hi Ritu. Great to see you.
Yeah, same here. So I have a quick question about the excellent case study that you just shared. How are these the challenges distributed to respective teams? You mentioned about creating different teams with country names and distributing those challenges or business problems. So what was the criteria used for allocating these business issues to teams?
No, when the first time when we did it, we did not allocate. We said whoever would like to participate. So there are 32 games. If you want to look at receivables or you want to look at maybe in terms of market share, whatever are the business problems. So we allowed people to participate freely, and that's how we were able to identify. Because see, remember one thing about knowledge, you don't know what you know until you have to use it. So the important thing is that somebody suddenly realized, oh, I have this knowledge. I would like to join this team. Then you search for people in this thing, and then they formed a team, and that's how they presented it. So we identified talent which was available, that people had this knowledge, but it is by coincidence or whatever we managed to sort of tap into it. It was unconscious actually initially. Later on, we realized the design of the program itself helps you to find out people who can have allied knowledge, but we don't give them that this thing, because the designation is that, oh, you are in charge of HR, but maybe in the past experience they have come from a business,
Exactly.
So that
right.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Sure. Thank you. Thanks.
我们的这个问题是因为刚刚我们提到，可能在 去在做知识奥运的时候，我们在这个组织里，然后组建了不同的团队，可能不同的团队应对不同的问题。那这个团队里的人呢，他其实是来自可能这个公司不同的部门的。那就是对于这样的一个分组，就是有没有这个团队各个团队的一个分组有没有一个标准？那这个其实没有一个标准，就是大家参加这个就是我们知识奥运的各个团队里呢是自由报名的，因为有时候大家可能就是你潜意识里就是你已经有的知识，你没有用到的时候，其实你没有意识到，就是你的隐性知识。所以当你意识到的时候，你才发现，哇哦，原来我还具备这样的知识。那我们这个知识就是这样的分组是让大家自由参与，然后通过这样的大家这个组队竞赛，然后让大家的隐性知识可以显现出来。那因为有的人，比如现在他在做 HR， 但其实他在过去他有很多业务方面的能力，那他也可以参与到这个业务方面的这个问题的这个解决上面。所以我们这个分组呢没有一个标准，大家可以自由的参与，这样呢可以就是挖掘出更多的隐性知识，也可以发掘组织里更多具有潜力的人才。那么thank you, Rudolf. We'll continue the presentation. Sorry for just now
from Michelle. There's a question from Michelle. Michelle, it'll get answered in the program, okay? And if it doesn't, then connect up with me. Okay?
Yes.
Sure, thank you.
Yes. Okay, now let's continue the presentation, and after the presentation, we will answer Michelle's question. Okay. Okay, we also have questions from the other platforms. Maybe I will leave 1 to 2 questions considering the time. Okay, here is the question. Did you store and reuse the tacit knowledge obtained from those playing activities? 那这个问题呢就是对于我们通过这些游戏化的方式，然后获取的隐性知识，它是否有被储存下来，进行一个循环的利用。Rudolf, please.
Yes. So now please understand when we design all these gamification programs, we are actually designing it to extract knowledge and use it in the organization. Okay. So it is not like a normal gamification that, okay, you do your induction program or do some course. No, ours are addressing business problems. So the whole idea is to elicit solutions that people have that can be applied widely. Okay, or in a particular context which could be there. So therefore, we do reuse the knowledge that we obtain from these play activities. Over to you guys.
那这个 Rudolf 的回答呢，我们在就是设计这个项目的时候呢，我们的目的也就是为了去萃取大家的隐性知识，然后再进行一个业务，就进行一个应用。那这些应用也是为了解决实际的这个我们遇到的问题。那这个过程呢，也是就是我们将这些隐性知识然后萃取出来，然后再广泛的利用过程。那它确实是这样的，就是我们有把它就是储存下来，然后进行一个利用，在实际情况中的利用。Okay, maybe we have the last question. How to identify potential orgmons?
So the answer is pretty simple. Listen to what the top management is saying when they address employees, when they have meetings, in your quarterly review meetings or monthly meetings. Keep your ears attuned and your antennas up. What are the key issues that management talks about? So are they always talking about market share? Are they talking about margins? Are they talking about problems with the changing shift in the market, or they talk of sustainability? So you will actually be able to identify, okay, what is the issues that they have. From there, you need to work with the experts, internal experts, and say that, okay, I want to create an organization monster that we would look at. So, for example, in one of the companies, when one of the issues that we had was the prices of steel were kept going up, but the construction company, you need to constantly use tons and tons of steel. So therefore, then how do you address this issue? different projects were doing different things. Okay, and then we also talked externally to industry. So we then created one particular monster around the steel pricing, and this model has now worked for the last 3 years. It has stabilized the procurement of steel prices. So how do you identify? Listen to what management keeps talking about. What are the issues that they are talking about, and it should be wicked problems.
Thank you。那最后一个问题是如何去发现我们组织内部的这个怪兽？那这个呢，其实是很简单，就是仔细的听我们管理层，就是我们组织内最高管理层他们所谈论的话题，比如在每次的会议上，可能是周会、月会，就是每次的例会上，他们提到的问题，就是公司遇到了哪些关键的难题，大家可能是比如说我们的市场份额可能下降，利润可能下滑，可能说组织要面临一个转型，或者说然后探讨组织的可持续问题，你就听我们管理层关心的那些问题，然后在基于这些问题，然后我们可以内部就是建立一个专家小组，然后去发现这样的去针对这个问题，然后去建立一个小组，然后去比如说可以在内部去制定一个比如说体系一个模型，然后去专门的去应对这些组织怪兽，把他们最终消灭。比如说我曾经是给一家就是建筑公司做咨询，他们的公司就遇到了一个难题，就是这个钢铁最近的价格在不断的攀升，但他们是建筑公司呢，这个用钢铁的量就非常的大，那就怎么解决这个难题？那么他们就是在内部就进行了专门的进行这个，然后建立一个小组，然后针对这个难题，然后制定了一个方案模型，然后这个模型呢，在他们又利用了过去的3年里，他们一直都在用，而且这个效果是非常的好的。那总结下来就是大家就是听管理层他们关心的这个问题，那针对这个问题去发现这个组织里就存在的这些难题、这些怪兽，然后把它们消灭。Okay, thank you very much for your answering, and I think that's all for today's webinar. And after the webinar, I will send you the feedback from the audience and how many people watched today's webinar on the different platforms. Thank you, Rudolf. Thank you for your great sharing, and thank you, and have a great rest of the day. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for your questions and for your participation. Thank you.
Thank you. 今天的分享呢，我们今天就到这里结束。我们非常感谢Rudolf先生今天的在线答疑。如果大家就是针对今天的讲座还有问题的话，可以是反馈给我们，然后我们可以就是转告给我们的嘉宾，然后帮大家进行进一步的答疑。那在这里我们也进行一个下期的我们讲座的预告，是由来自美国的 Stephen Flynn 先生，他是桥牌的前的副总裁。那他给我们带来的话题是大脑中的隐性知识和机器中的隐性知识。那如果大家对这场讲座感兴趣的话，可以扫下方的2维码，然后报名参与我们的讲座，然后跟我们的嘉宾进行1对1的在线互动问答。